Tēnā koutou katoa, it is 9:30, so we will get started. Please join me for a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te ata kura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. I declare the meeting open. Welcome, no mai. Please let me or Elise know if you intend on leaving the meeting. Morning tea is scheduled for 10:30, but we might even be done by then, so we'll see how we go. Apologies, I have Councillor Apanovic for lateness. Is he online?
No.
Nope. Oh, he just got on. Never mind. We move on. But we will accept apologies for Councillor Abdurrahman for early departure. I move the motion. Deputy Mayor will second. Let's put that to a vote. Councillor Chung, you can say yes or no if you like. Yeah. And can we get Councillor a new remote? I don't think it's worked for a week. And that is carried. Any conflicts of interest? Nope. Confirmation of minutes. I move the motion from the minutes of 5th of September and the 10th of October. Deputy Mayor will second. I now move the motion. Please vote. You can just say yes if you like. Yes. 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 And councillors on, yep, great. And that has passed. There are no items not on the agenda, so we now move to public participation. So today we have Derek Neal to speak to item 3.1 on behalf of the Karori Residents Association. Derek, you have 10 minutes, and that includes questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for being able to speak. I'm representing the Karori Residents Association, as stated, and I'm a bit quiet. Okay, right, sorry, I've got a wee bit of a frog in my throat. Firstly, our chair sends her apologies. She's unable to attend today, and I'm here on her behalf. During 2022, the Karori Residents Association undertook a survey of the residents to find out what their key concerns in the area were. From those, we identified three primary areas. They were the infrastructure, transport and the environment. We followed that in 2024, in August of this year, with a further survey to find out in a wee bit more depth what those concerns in particular were and where they applied. That resulted in the document which you now have before you. The second phase of it was a very sort of general, this is what the answers were. The third phase, which is a much more in-depth document, covers an analysis of those answers, and it provides probably some interesting sort of things which I'll highlight. On the infrastructure, for instance, the water meters were, surprisingly for me personally, they were quite well supported. But with a proviso that people were concerned that council would use the money from that to be for other things. So they really sort of wanted focused into that particular area. We also have a problem in our area with wastewater getting into the environment. That is another area where we've had a reasonable amount of discussion with the with Wellington Water on how to address it, and they have undertaken. We have a ongoing survey of Karori streams to identify where the problems are coming from. A lot of it is cross connections, and being on private land creates its own set of problems, but one which will need to be addressed at some stage. On transport, people were generally comfortable with the existing 30k road limits. There was some suggestions of maybe a uniform speed throughout the area, but at a slightly higher speed, around 40k. But it was sort of a mixed bag. There was a range of suggestions on that one. Overall, though, roading access was considered okay at the moment. On the bus services, people are generally happy with them. There has been a suggestion for park and ride facilities, particularly Appleton Park and Karori Park area, if that can be considered at some point in time. There's also an understanding that obviously the council is somewhat stretched for funds at the moment, and we're not trying for anything unrealistic. Bus lanes were discussed. They were preferred over cycle lanes in general on the survey. On the cycles, it was very much a split community. People like, people don't like. Main comment on both sides of the argument were by cycling safety. So that was, people recognised that as being a definite need. The only cycle lane that came under criticism in our area was the one up Birdwood Street. The other one seems to be accepted. I didn't pick up anything in the comments that indicated otherwise. Cycle parks was discussed. They are considered adequate in general. There were some who suggested a few more around, but it wasn't a huge issue. On the environment, there was comment about domestic animals, dogs and cats, particularly with the introduction of kiwi into our area. People really like that change going on, and but saw there was some need for thought around how best to prevent dogs from getting at the kiwis, and also protecting the native birds from predatory cats, as they seem to like hunting them. I know the ones around our area do, so they're a bit of a problem. Otherwise, those are the main things. There's plenty of reading in there, so I will leave that to yourselves to follow through on. But if you have any questions, just one other thing. There were, from the survey point of view, we had 1,000 responses, so it was a very good response. We have about 10,000 adults in the age category that responded, so 1 in 10 was quite phenomenal, really. Okay, that's me done.
Thank you, Derek. That's actually really wonderful insights there, and we appreciate your time, and it's a great start to the day. We'll take some questions. Councillor Free?
Yeah. Thank you, Derek. It's good to hear that there's a lot of positive feedback, as well as, obviously a bit of a mixed bag, but some positive feedback as well. I just wanted to ask if you had any more detail about the feedback of Birdwood Street Cycleway. You said it's the one that had the main criticism. What would have been some of the themes?
The main theme is Birdwood Street is quite a narrow, windy road, and they felt there was difficulty getting all the cycles and the cars and everything else up and down that street. They felt that was the major concern that was coming up.
So it feels like a bit of a compromise.
Yeah, it may have been maybe something worth looking at, just to see if there is some improvement could be done there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. Just on the topic of cycleways, any comment about the one planned for South Karori, down the south end of Karori Road?
No comments at all on that. I could see a need for it as a cyclist myself. It's an area which, again, is one of these narrow, windy roads, and it has a lot of cycle traffic on it, particularly with the Macra mountain bike park. But there was no particular comment on it at all.
Thank you.
Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks very much. Great report, thanks. Are there any issues that you would like us as council to be addressing more urgently than others that you think are something that really needs to be done immediately?
The primary concern in the area was the infrastructure, particularly around the obviously water leaks, which are being noticeably addressed. We're seeing quite an improvement in that. And again, as I said, the stormwater and wastewater getting mixed up. That was the number one area concern.
Councillor Free.
Sorry, this is very interesting information. So you mentioned the speed limits and that people were happy with enough with what we've done. I think there are some 30k speed limits fairly recently installed.
Yes. Yes, they're quite well accepted, and some not everybody does, obviously, but certainly the majority of the responses were in favour of what is there at present. There was. You'll see we asked them whether they want them extended. There were some that wanted them extended, but the majority are happy with what is there at present.
So if they were to be removed, I think this current government has got that on the agenda. Would that be seen as actually not such a great thing by the community?
I would think so. It's certainly better to have those speed limits. They're at the present. The present ones are around the mall area and the Marsden Village area, and those two areas. It seems to work well. I mean, I wasn't picking up any significant complaints on those.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll take one more question from Councillor Pennant.
Thank you, very helpful. Slips, did that come up?
No.
Just given we were talking about Birdwood as a very difficult looking one there.
There was nobody commented on them. Mind you, we didn't go into that in any detail either. So that wasn't something we raised. It hadn't been raised as an issue. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Derek. Councillor Calvert has circulated to councillors, so if you have any further questions, we'll get in touch, but really appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, just to clarify, with that we can table the survey document as part of the meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I am reordering the agenda in accordance with Standing Order 19.1, so we will begin with the committee report from the long-term plan to adopt the annual report. So I take us to 3.1. Please welcome Andrew Reeves and Bruce Robertson to speak to the report. We have Karen Young also in the room for questions, although she's not due to speak here at the moment. Over to you.
Morena koutou, councillors and mayor. We are excited to note that we have now got a signed audit report. So Karen has signed the audit report on behalf of the Auditor General for our annual report for the 30 June 2024 year end. I just wanted to start with a few comments and then I'll hand over to Bruce. Firstly, I just wanted to recognise the staff that have been involved in pulling together this annual report. It's such a significant document. It's significant in size, but significant in what it states because it highlights in effect, what we have achieved as a council throughout the financial year. And it's a really integral piece to our accountability. It's one of the core aspects of accountability within the Local Government Act, that we report this document on an annual basis within a statutory timeframe, which we have been able to do. The report itself is largely coordinated by the financial control team led by Karina Young, and all of the team has an input into that, as well as the strategy, policy and research team, so Baz's team, and they coordinate a whole lot of that. But absolutely, the whole organisation actually feeds into this document because it doesn't just report on our finances, it reports on all of the KPIs that we've been working towards in any given year. So there's just a huge amount of input that goes into this report, and I just wanted to recognise the staff that have fed into this and have worked so well, and that includes our kaimahi from all our CCOs, because this is about the group, right? As I note, it's a really significant document. It does reflect our achievements for the year, and there is a lot to recognise in what has been achieved. I would note that it is large in size, though, and that does come at, an accessibility, that provides an accessibility challenge. But I think the key thing for our community is we will produce a summary of that annual report that's statutorily required. But the other thing I would note is the importance of the audit opinion. So many people won't be all that interested in reading a substantive annual report. However, our community can take comfort that our independent auditors have read that report and they can attest to its validity and the disclosures in it. And of course, the audit opinion itself is not addressed to you as councillors, it's addressed to the readers. So it provides that assurance to our community and Wellingtonians that someone independent of us has reviewed that document and considered that document, and they consider it complete. So what does the audit opinion actually say? Well, it is an unmodified audit opinion with the exception of two areas, and I'm going to talk about those two areas. Unmodified is a bit of audit lingo, but what it does mean is that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. And they comply with generally accepted accounting practice. That is the rules that we have to follow in presenting this information. That all the other disclosures in within the document are also fairly stated. So that's also the same for the non-financial information, but I do want to cover two aspects of the non-financial information that has a qualification on it. The first qualification reflects that the auditor has not been able to attest to the number of complaints received about water supply, wastewater and stormwater. So that's not to say that the information reported in the report is wrong. It means that we don't have the systems and processes that the auditor can look at to satisfactorily get assurance that it is materially stated. So we do have systems and processes, but most complaints are given to Wellington Water. There is a bit of a hybrid. That is consistent with the opinion that we've had in previous years, and we've clearly made a decision not to invest in those systems under the current model because we're looking at what the future model may look like. The other area of qualification actually relates to the prior year, but because you disclosed prior year information in this annual report, we also need to recognise that, and that relates to greenhouse gases and the Scope 3 disclosure. In this annual report, we haven't disclosed Scope 3. That has been a timing issue, and of course within the month you'll be looking at the Te Atakura report, which we will disclose our Scope 3 disclosures in. It's just because we've had new information come through that we can calculate on that basis, and so rather than hold up the annual report for that, we're just making a pragmatic view not to disclose it in the annual report because it is discretionary, but we will include it in the Te Atakura report. Lastly, the opinion also includes an emphasis of matter. Now, an emphasis of matter paragraph is not about something that is wrong or is misstated or the auditors can't get assurance of, but it is simply drawing attention for the readers of the opinion and the annual report, two particular disclosures that we've made. And that is in regard to our revaluation of our Three Waters assets. And so what the emphasis and matter reflects is that there has been an increased cost of construction over the last few years, and there's a need for a review of procurement arrangements and charges in respect of water services, and we know that Wellington Water is going to undertake that work. So it's just recognising that those construction costs are high. It's leading to very high valuations of our assets and the unit costs within that, and we do need to look at what that means for us in terms of the cost of ongoing work for those Three Waters assets. So that's the nature of the audit opinion. I will hand over to Bruce to offer his comments on this as well.
Thank you. Always have technology problems in this room, don't I? So thank you. Appreciate that. Look, I just wanted to make a few comments which hopefully add a wee bit to what Andrea said. I would like to firstly just also endorse my appreciation to staff. The biggest risk I could have is trying to name them all, but it does reflect a team effort. So Andrea, I know as CFO, if I could ask you to take my personal appreciation back to all your staff, I am deeply grateful for it. What I'd want to reflect is they have shown to me, as your independent chair, a commitment to effective reporting, which is recognised internationally. And I want to reflect on that. Effective reporting means commitment to transparency. And I'd like to reflect that, in my view, actually, I disagree. Actually, at about 170 pages, this is actually quite a concise annual report. Can I say that, Andrea? Given I've dealt with some this week that go to about 400 pages. It is actually quite a concise report, and dare I say it, probably because I'm getting a bit old and used to them, quite an easy read, which is, again, great commitment to staff. But I'd also like to acknowledge my committee because they've had to go through this annual report at least twice. We have met with staff to go through a draft and provide effective feedback, and then on the 22nd of October, prior to the LTP FPC, I've learnt that acronym, Rebecca, to actually reach a position we were comfortable the accounts were good to go, and indeed the indicated opinion and the letter of representation was ready to be signed. Tony and I were asked to maintain a watching eye, and so to some extent I'd just like to report on what the watching eye saw in the process, because we weren't able to conclude on a finalised set of the finalised annual report, or indeed what the final opinion would look like. But before I do that, can I just make special mention to Karen and Laura? I don't know if I have seen them in the back of the room. It's been a challenging year for the reasons we'll come back to around the Three Waters valuation, and indeed we only received effective clearance last night. But in good cooperation, even as early as the 22nd of October, they were giving us strong indications as to where the opinion was going. And so in lots of ways, last night was about dotting I's and crossing T's, not about substantive issues. There have been two key changes which are relevant for you to hear about today that affected this annual report between the 22nd of October. You've seen it in the LTP FPC, and I just think it's worthwhile as council adopting this that you need to be reminded. The first one was the Three Waters revaluation. Along with your brethren councils in the region, we have undertaken a common revaluation of our Three Water assets. If you look at the updated disclosures in the annual report, it reflects the challenge of settling on what is an effective unit rate. In other words, take for this piece of pipe in the ground, what's its replacement cost? And in fact, the replacement costs at the moment are substantial. It's clearly affected by the economic cycle, but you don't know where it's going. And there are some important disclosures around what Wellington Water in particular on your behalf will be doing as far as that's concerned. As Andrea said, the auditors have placed an emphasis of matter on that matter, and it warrants a careful look. it's important that the Three Waters revaluation was undertaken, given particularly you're going into a year to consider water reform. Actually, to be honest, I shouldn't put that in the future tense. You are actually considering it now, given you are dealing with water reform. And, dare I say it, with no comment other than you're going into an LTP amendment, which makes sense. The other matter which has occurred more or less since the last committee meeting is 3 events which are mentioned in Tory's and Barbara's forward. It's a credit downgrade from AA plus to AA. It's the passage and passing of the notice of motion around the airport sale, and it's the probable implementation of a Crown Observer. You are only able to you need to consider how your annual report could or could not be affected for all events up till the date of adoption. That is today, 31 October. So the one matter that we had to consider was this a matter which affects these accounts? The answer is technically no, and I agree. But in your forward, Tory and Barbara, I actually concur that you've raised these as issues. And I congratulate you that you've had that openness and transparency about that in what is our formal document. Those are the 2 key changes, the Three Waters revaluation, the comments that have been added to the forward, which I think are worthwhile bearing in mind. As regard the annual report itself, I said it's a good annual report. And if I could just draw your attention to a couple of the sections. I mean, it's really the whole annual report, but let me just try and paraphrase it. I have a strong sense that the community's assessment of your performance is always based on service received at a reasonable cost. So this places emphasis on the performance section of the annual report, not the financial statements. So the front half of the report is called Our Performance in Detail, which describes the service you have delivered, because that's actually all, if I'm a ratepayer, what I have received from you guys. And there is an important section noting the cost of the delivery of each of those. So that is really important information, and it's well organised. I want to again compliment you in your transparency on describing the physical delivery, both what you have achieved and been able to deliver, as well as also being upfront about where you haven't achieved it, plus also the cost. I would commend you to read that, because this is, I reflect your accountability about what you've delivered. Having said that, and Andrea's perhaps hinted you might find that a tad impenetrable, and if you're wanting to be able to talk quickly with your ratepayers, I would really suggest go to the summary of our year. It's actually in the front. It's about 18, no, not even 18 pages long, and that's a quick snapshot of what actually you have achieved and delivered to your community. However, look, you know, I may always make jokes about accountants. We are good guys, I hope. But I don't want to dismiss, and gals, thank you, that's right, and gals particularly. I just want to reflect that the financial section is actually really important. I know the financials are looking backwards. They look at what we have spent, what we have received in the course of the last year. But and that's important. And you've got that accountability. As I said, it's particularly important when you match that with the cost of what you have actually delivered. But I think one of the things that I'd want to stress this year is the balance sheet. I know you've gone through a process previously with the LTP of looking at your balance sheet strength. Given you have an amendment to go into, given you've got Three Waters to go to, given you're going to have to think about what is our balance sheet and resources like if Three Waters goes, or it's definitely it's going to be reformed. The quality of this balance sheet, which again I stress has been externally verified, is really important. So I just want to stress those are the things I'd be looking for. Our performance, what was the service received by the community at what cost, and what strength, financial strength, are we taking into another challenging year for council. So with those comments, Tory, and reflecting that really the object today is to adopt the annual report, can I leave it as Chair of the committee delegated with the task to indicate to you that you have the backing of the Risk Committee to adopt the annual report today, and I'd like to recognise you can do so with comfort because the letter of representation has been signed and we have an audit opinion which is appropriate to our circumstances. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll take some questions. We'll start off with Councillor Free.
Thank you, and I'm I'd just like to pass my extreme gratitude on to the work done by your committee and by our staff. How does the delivery of this report, which seems fairly timely, how does it compare with what we've, time frame in which, say, we managed last year or the year before?
So we do have a statutory reporting timeline of 31 October in effect, so that is within the Local Government Act. We also met that timeline last year, although it was a real stretch for us as staff. This year, the process has been incredibly smooth, and I don't say that lightly given we had a revaluation. It's quite phenomenal, and hence why I'm so proud of my team. The 2 years prior, we didn't meet that 31 October deadline, but the deadlines were extended because of the COVID environment that we were operating within. So, look, we always kind of work to 31 October. We don't sort of look to... In this environment, we used to do it much earlier, actually, 20 years ago. We look to take the time and make sure we've got the really good messages going out to the community in the annual report.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, just a quick question. You made a comment about we've made a choice not to invest in systems to get accurate numbers of water leak complaints. As we WCC, Wellington Water, or Wellington City Council as part of Wellington Water? Just want to clarify that.
It's everyone, and what I would say is that we've got systems to record. It's just that those systems cannot be relied upon by the auditors. So we're certainly recording information. They just don't have any practicable steps to take to actually verify that it was accurately recorded and the timeframes are recorded. So there's a slight difference there. So, for all intents and purposes, we can rely on the information that has been put in there, but we don't have that ability to independently review that it's correct down to the detail that's been provided. And it's all councils investing in that.
I wonder, Ben, if I could add to that from my other commitments around the country. This is not an uncommon problem. It's one of the suite of mandatory measures, which actually makes it a very important measure, and I think we have to acknowledge our need to actually deal with it. There has been some reluctance, and I'm talking sector-wide here, given the immediacy was anticipated of water reform. And this might actually be somebody else's problem, if I can put it crudely like that. Having said that, as a mandatory measure, it is a difficult one to comply with. And today, I happen to know about today, there are a number of councils that will receive a similar modification to their opinion, if not already. So it is a common problem, not that that's an excuse for our particular position with Wellington Water and ourselves.
That's great context, thank you.
Councillor Calvert.
Can you just let me know when we will publish, other than being in agenda papers, the annual report?
Yeah. So within the context of the Local Government Act, within a month, so a calendar month, we must publish our annual report and our summary annual report. That's from today's date, i.e. the signing of the annual report. So it's a month after we receive the audit opinion. We must do that. So, of course, we've kind of technically met it because the documents are publicly available, but we will publish this in its full form within the month. Calculating that is the 2nd of December, and that is because the 30th of November falls on a weekend, so the 2nd of December is the Monday, so that's the statutory date, but we'll do it before then.
And going forward, is there any way that we could disclose perhaps even the non-financial information sooner publicly? Because I know that's only really become available publicly in the last week, and people haven't been aware of of it?
Well, we report all of our quarterly results and the trends throughout the year, so we do have that information. I think we make an assessment as to the focus on having an independent, the numbers that are independently audited become the publicly available thing, and so that those that are interested in it can take that assurance that it has been through that process.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, kia ora, and thank you both for the work and the teams. Just a question regarding the procurement of pipes for Wellington Water. I read that it is the Wellington region that has higher costs than the rest of the country. Is there a reason behind that at this stage?
Yeah. So look, our work on the water infrastructure is largely completed through Wellington Water, and what has transpired through this revaluation is that the unit rates that we are paying through Wellington Water, and that also affects Upper Hutt and Hutt City. Pororoa didn't actually do a revaluation this year, and they will be needing to do that in future years. I believe that's the case. And what was found, because Audit New Zealand have a significant database of unit rate costs, because they audit so many councils, so they can go and have a look at the unit rate costs that other councils are paying. And what they've found is that the costs that are being incurred by Wellington Water are significantly higher than other unit rates. The Chief Executive of Wellington Water, while he hasn't sent anything direct to us, he has to the other two councils, and it's not a reflection that we've been deliberately missed off the list or anything like that. They just were sort of ahead of us in the revaluation process, recognising that this is something that he certainly does want to look into, and he has mentioned that to myself as well.
Question: is there an indication of a timeline when we may get a response to that at this stage?
I don't have any time frame at this point, but we can certainly follow up with the Chief Executive and get a sense of what they're looking to do in that space.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Bruce and Andrea, for all your good work. Bruce, I'm really interested in what to do, or your comments about the performance section of the annual report. Now, as you'll know, a lot of the feedback that we actually get from the public, and I think there was another article published in The Scoop this morning about the things that the higher costs of the council and the things that are going wrong. So how can we promote this section, at least that section of the annual report, to the public, so that they get a better understanding of what we are facing and the issues that we're facing?
Well, I think Andrea perhaps gave half a hint there, Ray. One was clearly your quarterly review, which I presume you do in open. It may well be that you want to think more broadly about actually how it's clear at those quarterly reports that you are reporting on performance. This one here, I think you want to reflect on, we are at this time because we want independent third-party assurance that what we're saying is accurate. We've got the systems in place, more importantly, and it can be verified, and you've got that, which is really important. I think what I'm trying to say, Ray, is don't just put this on the shelf. Okay, even if it's only about the balance sheet, you've got to take it forward. So it's important to analyse it. I actually think it warrants a level of looking at. I might be giving you work, Rebecca, at the LTP FPC, to actually just reflect on that, Ray, because actually the report is also incredibly transparent about the challenges of service delivery. So there is good information here to enable you to address looking at that issue of actually cost effectiveness of your services.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yep.
Okay. Andrea, you were mentioning that the annual report will be published within a month. So until that date, is it accessible to the public? Any information accessible to the public? It is.
Yes, it's attached to these this agenda. And this is in public, so it's all accessible.
Okay, so I have a constituents meeting on Saturday, so can I actually use this information?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'm going to draw a line to questions there and move on to debate. I want to thank you both for that comprehensive report. Thank you very much. Councillor Ipanovic is going to move. Councillor, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks. I will. Should just. Thank you, Mayor Whānau. I'd just like to acknowledge the comments that both Bruce and Andrew have made around the annual report and the timeframes and the work and the commitment that goes into these. It's not an easy task. I've done many in my time. I am quite surprised at the size of it. It seems a bit smaller than what it should be, Bruce, given the changes that have occurred over many years. So I'm very happy to move this. I'll just make a couple of comments. Up until the day we accept this is quite nervous for accountants because anything can happen and anything can change. Fortunately, we haven't had any significant and major changes. So that's a good thing. I've been through the whole of the annual report again, as I always do, multiple times, and tend to find new information on a daily basis, actually. And I've been fielding questions from people right up to yesterday around some of the content in it, which interestingly enough focuses on our expenditure and also our financial prudence. So I've done some calculations. Done a few numbers. Interesting. Insurance, 3% of our operation expenditure. Finance expense, 8%. Depreciation, 24%. So when we constantly say these are the issues that we have and these are the things that are affecting how we can do things, there's the three numbers you want. Another one for people who always say we're overstaffed. Staffing is only 17% of our costs. So take that how you will and distribute it as you wish as well. The other one that I've been fielding questions on is around financial prudence, which is very relevant for us as we move through to our LTP amendment. Of course, this particular annual report sits at the end of the last LTP cycle, the 2021 item. So if you go to page 522, you will see the financial prudence graphs and a list of items in there, and you can work through that to actually see what components we should be looking at and when we discuss financial prudence. So just to close again, we've finished another cycle. It's done. Tomorrow, Andrew and the team will continue on with the next one. So looking forward to, again, monitoring how we perform through the year and moving into the next cycle, which will end in June. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews will second. Would you like to speak?
I reserve my right.
Cool. Any other debate? Well, all right then. Oh. Of course. Councillor Calvert.
Okay. Look, I think it is, I think Bruce, our Chair of Audit and Risk, said something, don't be afraid to look at the report and give it, and I know that the public will be taking a close look at it once it's published, and probably published in a better format than looking through committee papers in itself. I thought Councillor Ipanovic made a couple of good points about depreciation, but we've got to remember that we are not accounting for all the depreciation that we should be. I think it's roughly about 25%. I see our CFO. Can you just clarify that?
Sorry, we are accounting for all our depreciation. We are definitely accounting for it.
But we're not
funding it.
Not funding. So, okay, so I'm not an accountant, so I probably used the wrong term, so apologies. But we are not funding all the depreciation that we should be, by at least 25%, or roughly 25%. When we talk about staffing, we've got to remember that aside from staffing, we've got some huge projects, and those projects are contractors and consultants, so they're another element of spend there. And it's really important to reflect back, and I think we really need to be reflecting back on our annual report as we move forward into a significant long-term plan amendment. And because there's a number of projects that haven't quite delivered as we had expected them to deliver. And so if we're spending significant amounts of money going forward, we need to really understand what didn't work quite so well. And I think about the town hall, I think about Let's Get Wellington Moving, the city streets, our social housing, and dare I mention Reading. But the important thing is that actually it's making this report accessible to our communities, and actually about some of the frontline services that we are actually providing these communities. And I was out in Newtown Library yesterday for their Diwali event, and what struck me is how important that, and we shouldn't forget, because we talk about high-level figures, we talk about audit reports, we talk about stuff that the average person doesn't quite understand, but what they do see is what services that we provide as a council on the front line in our libraries, and the staff there that are providing the services to enable us to be a better community. At yesterday's event, it was a Hindu celebration event, but we had lots of diverse people there. We had the Muslim community, we had the Christian community, we had everyone joining in on the event. And I think it's really important that these are the services that are actually contained in the annual report, but we don't actually
One more minute, Councillor.
see them. So, but on another note, where's my bag? And on a very positive note, I just want to say that from looking back, our Phoenix team did a fantastic job during this past year, and we helped support the Phoenix. There's a call for us to paint the city yellow because we do not want Auckland to beat us, at least on this, for our game on Saturday, the first home derby. So as part of that, I ask you all to also reflect on the great performance of the Phoenix team. And even though Auckland stole our goalkeeper, and they've got the big bucks, they've got the ritualistas there, but we can do things, and I think the Phoenix is an example of that, how we can provide better services, cheaper, and we don't need to have gold-plated solutions. So I'm wearing my Phoenix scarf. I've got a spare one if anybody else wants to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Matthews? No? Right of reply? I'm going to say no. Fabulous. Okay, thank you, councillors. That was great. Thank you, officers. We will now go to a vote. Just waiting on you, Councillor Whiringa. Unless you want to say yes or no over Teams. We'll just close it. Wonderful, and that has passed. Thank you. We now move to 2.1 for the disposal of 33 Shane Walk, Newlands. Please welcome Sarah Jane Still to introduce the report.
Kia ora,
And welcome to
Councillors.
Jacob too. Sorry, yes. Over to you.
So this is a report for a proposed disposal of approximately 503 square metres of fee simple land in Newlands at 33 Shaney Walk. This is a former reservoir site. The reservoir was decommissioned in 2015 and it has not been utilised for anything else since then. It is residentially zoned, and it was previously subject to a reserve status for a utility reserve. This has recently been removed. We did public consultation with no submissions received. So now we're coming to you for approval to dispose.
Wonderful. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Randall.
Yes, I just note that you are thinking of, so could you just explain how you intend to dispose of it?
So our standard process for disposal of land is a tender process on the open market. We'll put it up on our website. We have a real estate agent do all the marketing. There'll be people can go and see it if they want, and we'll just receive tenders.
Okay, so it's going to be tendered then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pannett.
Thank you. Just from an efficiency point of view, this has been going on for a long time. Do you think there's anything that we as an organisation could do to speed up if we have another issue like this? And was there anything legislatively that made it tricky?
I think with this one, so this was previously brought to council in 2016 for disposal, and it was not approved at that time. My understanding was that the adjoining owners didn't really want it to be sold. They liked it as it was, and it just sort of came about that it was voted down. So really it was just sort of something that we couldn't prevent at that point in time, and then trying to negotiate with the owners on the easement, which was one of the requirements from that meeting, hasn't been successful. So we've basically called it and said we need to get rid of it. It's not doing anything. And we can't grant an easement. We don't need to grant an easement over that land. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Chung.
Sorry, just relating to that question, do the adjoining owners still object to this, object to the sale?
They don't necessarily object to the sale, they just don't want it to be sold, but that there is no sort of consultation from them. We don't take that into account. It's just how they feel. They will have an opportunity to purchase the site if they want to. Then they will be informed that we are placing it on the market prior to it going up.
Great, thanks. So we'll advise them individually before we advertise it?
Yes, so we are required to, under the Public Works Act, to send them a letter.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. I think that brings us to the end of questions. So I want to thank you both for that report. I understand Councillor McNulty is moving the paper. Would you like to speak?
Sure. We don't talk about Newlands very often, so I'm just going to take a little bit of an opportunity to grandstand about the fantastic suburb of Newlands while I have a few moments of your time. It is an amazing little suburb and one that is underrated, and I would say that more people around this table should take the opportunity to go explore. We have an incredible community centre run by our council. It's across the road from the Bachelor Street flats, which are, a sore point for me, given the condition of some of those properties, though they have been well restored in recent times. But that community centre goes above and beyond to feed, shower and help those residents. That's not part of the council KPIs of how that community centre is operating in terms of when they get evaluated internally, but it is the work that they do on the front line where they go above and beyond. So I really just wanted to give particular mention to them. We have a Ki Ōrahi pitch in Pukehuia Park. It's one of the only ones in Wellington, and we have a competitive Ki Ōrahi League operating out of Newlands, which is a excellent initiative, and to see that sport brought to life. There is a lot of excitement about the new Korean fried chicken place opening shortly in the Newlands Mall. St Michael's and All Angels do an incredible amount of community work as one of the local churches there, including a lot of outreach into that Bachelor Street flats. We have excellent schools. We have my personal favourite part of Wellington, which is set in Nosota Park. It is a glorious little piece of nature with an amazing waterfall at the end, an amazing mosque. Can I just have people not talking while I speak? That would be really lovely.
Yeah, no, there's a bit of whispering going on. Can we please stop that?
Children. So Masjid Al-Amin Mosque, and Sheikh Khaled, who runs that mosque and is desperately looking to expand his community space because it's one of the most thriving Muslim communities in northern Wellington. I couldn't not talk about the Indian restaurants that we have and the superb selection. Kenmore Street Catering, and for me as well, it's home to one of Wellington's last real pubs, which is the Newlands Arms, one of good local pubs. So those are just some highlights of Newlands. I know this is entirely tangential and I'm completely grandstanding to the paper in front of us, but I just felt like Newlands deserves a little bit of a shout out and a little bit of love around this. table. And I'm happy to move this paper. It seems incredibly common sense that we dispose of this land. Hopefully we can make some decent money out of it, and that can go into better and higher priorities for the council.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Randall, did you want a second? Would you like to speak now?
I'm not going to take the time to grandstand about Newlands, other than to say that Newlands is one of those suburbs that people are quietly living in and being Wellingtonians in a traditional sense, and I think it's really helpful that we do sometimes cast our eye towards those suburbs where there is not major problems. We sometimes think that the city is full of problems, and in fact most of the city is doing reasonably well given the economic circumstances. But yes, thank you, Councillor McNulty, for the shout out to Newlands, and I support you. Thank you.
Any other debate? Councillor Free.
Yes, just to say that I'm glad you actually spoke up about Newlands because it is a thriving area, and I went up recently to meet Councillor Randall actually, and the Pukehuia Park that the council put up there is truly amazing, and I think there is such a lot of good basic work that council does, as highlighted in our previous paper with our annual report.
Apologies, sorry, Councillor. Can we please stop chattering at the table? Thank you.
That we actually just take for granted, and I think it's good, actually, thank you, Councillor McNulty, to remind us of some of the good stuff, the good everyday stuff that's actually happening around our city, and that Pukehuia Park is really worth a visit from anyone outside the Newlands area. I'm sure I wouldn't need to say that to anyone in Newlands, because they all know that already. And, of course, I'm very happy to vote for these suggestions. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Wonderful. Wrote a reply? Great. In that case, let's go to a vote. I'm unsure if Councillor Abdurrahman is there.
He's unable to speak last time I heard, so probably just have to close without him.
We'll just close. And that has passed. Wonderful. Thank you. Final paper, 2.2, decisions register updates. We will take the report as read. Does anyone have any questions for Andrea? Excellent. I will move the motion. Our Deputy Mayor will second. Is there any debate? No? Excellent. Let's go to a vote. And I think we'll just close it there. Wonderful, that is passed. Excellent. I declare this meeting closed at 10:27. Sorry, I just need to make a point of that. Please join me in a karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapunui, kia wātia, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, i te ara takatū, ko e rā e rongo, whakaeria ake kurunga, kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia. Awesome, thank you everyone.